The rain hammered against the naval pier like gunfire, bouncing off the concrete slabs with a rhythm that mirrored Mara Keene's heartbeat. She pulled the collar of her jacket higher, the cold seeping through the fabric, and tightened her grip on the duffel bag slung over her shoulder. It was heavy, but not from equipment. Inside were personal effects, some files she was instructed to carry, and a small envelope she had never opened, handed to her by a stranger in a hallway in Norfolk. Mara had been awake for 48 hours, running on caffeine and adrenaline. Orders had been scrambled multiple times over the past 24 hours, and when she called to confirm her deployment, she was met with silence or vague, evasive statements. Nothing in her training prepared her for the confusion that now gripped her life. And yet, she kept moving forward. Navy life had taught her to expect the unexpected. Her boots splashed through puddles as she approached the checkpoint. The familiar hum of scanners, the chatter of junior sailors, the clanging of metal, it should have felt routine. But the air carried tension, thick and electric like the calm before a storm. 2 military police officers appeared, their black raincoats plastered against their bodies, faces stern under the brim of their caps. Mara's stomach twisted. "Petty Officer Keene," one asked. "Yes," she said. "Is there a problem?" The taller one stepped closer, voice flat. "Step aside, ma'am." Her pulse spiked. "Excuse me." "Step aside, ma'am, now." Mara's brow furrowed. This wasn't normal protocol, not for someone with her clearance and record. Yet before she could protest further, cold metal bit into her wrists. "Hands behind your back. You're under arrest," the shorter officer said. Shock rooted her to the spot. She had served under intense fire, faced missions that would make civilians shiver. And yet, right here, in front of dozens of onlookers, she was immobilized like a criminal. Under arrest, for what? Her voice was a mix of confusion and rising fear. "By order of the Admiral," the officer replied, eyes fixed ahead. "No talking." The humiliation burned like acid. Sailors she had trained and mentored whispered among themselves, confusion and fear mixing on their faces. Some looked away, ashamed to witness the scene. A young ensign muttered under his breath, "Why are they handcuffing her? She's Petty Officer Keene." "No talking," the MP barked again. Mara's mind raced. This had to be a mistake. Perhaps a miscommunication, maybe a mix-up with someone else. But deep down, a knot of dread began to form. This felt deliberate, personal. As they forced her to her knees on the slick concrete, she tried to piece together what could have triggered this. Her last operation had been confidential, the details buried deep in files few had access to. No one outside naval intelligence should even know she existed. Yet someone did. The MPs did not speak, only guided her forward with mechanical precision. The path led not to the detention wing, as she expected, but to the strategic operations briefing room. Mara's stomach sank. That was a place reserved for high-level officers, for sensitive operational briefings, for classified missions where civilians and lower-ranked personnel were not allowed. "Why here?" she demanded, voice trembling despite her attempt to sound steady. "This isn't where you take detainees." The door swung open, and a voice rolled over her like a thunderclap. "Bring her in." It was a voice she knew, though she hadn't heard it in years. A voice that commanded fear and respect in equal measure. Her breath caught. Her eyes widened as she recognized the figure at the head of the room, Admiral Rowan Hale. The youngest four-star in the Navy, a man known for precision, ruthlessness, and surviving missions that had ended others. He should not know her. He should not even be aware of the operations she had participated in. And yet his gaze locked onto her as though piercing through the layers of her history, her secrets, and her very being. "Set her down," Hale said. The MPs hesitated, their eyes darting between him and Mara. One officer muttered, "Sir." "Now," Hale repeated, sharp and final. Mara was forced into a metal chair, rain still dripping from her jacket. The room was silent except for the hum of screens along the walls, glowing with maps, satellite feeds, and sensitive operational data. Officers stood stiff as statues, some avoiding her gaze entirely. The sense of surveillance was suffocating. She felt naked under the weight of so many eyes. "Sir, there's been a mistake," Mara said, voice quivering. "My deployment papers." "Cancelled," Hale said sharply, cutting her off. "By me." Her stomach dropped, but why? Hale's eyes narrowed, studying her as if she were an equation he needed to solve immediately. He stepped closer and said something that made her blood run cold. "Lift your shirt 2 inches." Mara froze. "Sir, that's—" "Do it." Her hands shook as she obeyed, revealing a tattoo on her ribs, a broken trident intertwined with a single star, small and deceptively simple, yet laden with meaning. Mara had thought she had hidden it well, that it was a relic of a past that no one in active duty should remember. But Hale's eyes widened. He knew. "Release her," he said, voice sharp and low. The MPs froze. The sound of cuffs clicking open was deafening to Mara's ears. Her wrists ached, red marks forming where metal had bitten into her skin. Hale stepped forward, placing himself between her and the room. "When were you activated?" he asked. Her pulse surged. Activated? She hadn't been. Or had she? Fear and confusion swirled together in her chest. "I wasn't," she said, voice barely audible. "Yes," Hale said quietly, "you were." Her throat went dry. He knew. He knew everything she had tried to bury. He knew the missions erased from the Pentagon, the people who had disappeared, the orders she had followed that could never be traced. "Admiral, who told you about me?" Hale did not answer. Instead, he gestured to the door. "Everyone out." Officers and MPs filed out with military precision, leaving the room oppressively quiet. Only the hum of the screens remained, casting flickering shadows across their faces. Hale leaned closer, voice now a whisper that carried the weight of secrets she hadn't shared with a soul in years. "Mara, the Pentagon flagged your tattoo and sent me the file connected to it. The program doesn't exist anymore, and everyone who knew about it is gone. Except you." Lightning cracked against the pier outside. Mara's heart raced as she realized that she was standing on the edge of a truth she had thought buried forever. "Admiral, she began. But the words caught in her throat. The truth, the mission, the betrayal, the lives lost, it was a story she had promised never to tell. Hale's gaze bore into her. "When the covert team vanished in the Gulf, what did you survive that no one else did?" Mara's chest tightened. The answer could destroy her career, her life, or worse. Before she could respond, a shadow passed across the door. A man's voice called from the hallway. "Admiral, urgent." Hale's eyes flicked to the door. "What is it?" The officer swallowed, breathing hard. "Sir, we just confirmed the target with her tattoo landed on U.S. soil." Mara's blood turned to ice. Hale's hand tightened into a fist. "Where?" The officer hesitated, lips trembling. "Here on this base." Mara's pulse stopped. Every nightmare she had buried, every ghost she thought she had outrun, suddenly loomed in the room with her. The air in the strategic operations briefing room was thick with the smell of rain, metal, and tension. The storm outside pounded the pier like artillery, and each crack of lightning illuminated the room in stark, fleeting flashes. Mara Keene's wrists still stung from the handcuffs, and the damp fabric of her jacket clung uncomfortably to her skin. Her pulse had not slowed since the announcement. Someone with her tattoo, someone connected to Operation in Berlin, had landed on U.S. soil. Admiral Rowan Hale stood at the head of the room, his 4-star insignia glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. He was a figure of controlled power, the kind of man whose silence carried more weight than the screams of an entire fleet. He shouldn't know her name, shouldn't recognize her tattoo, shouldn't even be aware that she existed outside classified files buried in a secure vault. Yet here he was, and he did. "Set her down," Hale said again, voice low, measured. The MPs guided her into the chair with mechanical precision. Mara's knees were stiff, her muscles aching from the forced march through the rain, the humiliation of handcuffs and the weight of her duffel bag. She tried to regain some sense of control. "Sir, I believe there's been a mistake. My deployment papers." "Cancelled," Hale interrupted, a note of finality in his tone that brooked no argument. "By me." The words hit Mara like a blow to the chest. "Cancelled? But why? I've trained, I've prepared, Silence. Hale's gaze cut through her. He stepped closer and his voice softened just enough to chill her to the bone. "Lift your shirt 2 inches." Mara froze. Her heart hammering, her mind racing, she whispered, "Sir, that's—" "Do it," Hale said. With trembling hands, Mara obeyed. The tattoo on her ribs, a broken trident intertwined with a single star, was revealed. It was small, unassuming to the untrained eye, but it held secrets that could topple careers, expose covert operations, and more importantly, reveal her true past. Hale's eyes widened. Recognition flashed across his face, rapid and precise, the kind that comes from someone trained to notice every detail, every symbol, every telltale sign of classified programs. "Release her," he ordered. The MPs hesitated, but Hale's glare was enough to make them obey. The cuffs clicked open. Pain radiated through Mara's wrists, but she ignored it. Her arms dropped to her sides, and for the first time since the rain-soaked march began, she felt a fraction of relief. Hale stepped forward, positioning himself between her and the remaining personnel. "When were you activated?" Her pulse spiked. "Activated." The word sounded alien, loaded. "I wasn't," she whispered. "Yes," he said softly, "you were." Mara's stomach sank. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. Hale knew. He knew everything she had survived, missions erased from Pentagon records, colleagues who vanished without a trace, operations so secret they were treated as if they had never existed. "Who told you about me?" she asked, barely audible. Hale didn't answer. Instead, he gestured at the door. "Everyone out." Officers and MPs filed out immediately, leaving only the two of them, the hum of the screens, and the storm outside. The silence that followed was heavier than any interrogation she had endured. Hale's presence was magnetic, oppressive, and commanding all at once. Mara could feel the weight of his scrutiny, a meticulous examination that seemed to strip her down to every secret she had ever carried. "Hale," she began, voice tight, "whatever you read in that file, it wasn't the full truth." "I assumed that," he said. "That's why I want to hear it from you." "I can't," she said, shaking her head. "I swore an oath, I promised." "Your oath is void," Hale interrupted, stepping closer. "Operation in Berlin has been flagged as potentially compromised. Your file was declassified last night for urgent intelligence review." Mara froze. Declassified. For what purpose? She had thought the program buried forever, its operators erased from every official record. "Because someone recreated it," Hale said quietly, letting the words sink into her bones. Her pulse doubled. "No, that's impossible, the facility." "Destroyed," he finished, tone clipped. "Yet last week a drone captured a symbol on a target's shoulder in the Red Sea. Your symbol." Mara's blood ran cold. The symbol was not just ink. It was a key, a warning, a signature of those trained in Berlin's covert protocols. If it had appeared on a target now, it meant someone had resurrected the program, or worse, hijacked it. "Admiral, if someone is using that program again," her voice faltered, "you have no idea what you're dealing with." "Then explain it to me," Hale said, leaning in. His eyes were sharp, searching every flicker of her expression. Mara inhaled slowly, trying to calm her shaking hands and racing mind. Operation in Berlin wasn't just covert. It wasn't military. It wasn't even officially sanctioned. We were trained off-book, off-grid, beyond the reach of normal command structures. Our missions, they weren't supposed to be traceable to the United States, not even to naval intelligence officially. Ghost operatives, Hale murmured. No, Mara said, not ghosts, stars. The word hung in the air. Stars. Mara and the others had been stars. Not soldiers, not spies, not tools of proof that humans could be reshaped, re-engineered, and sent into war zones that governments could never publicly acknowledge. She lifted her shirt higher, revealing faint, jagged scars beneath the ink, physical proof of missions that should never have existed. They called us stars because we weren't supposed to fall. The trident symbol, it signified jurisdiction under naval intelligence, but in reality it marked us as expendable. Hale absorbed the words, expression unreadable. You mean conscripted? Mara didn't answer. No one could have understood fully. Not the civilians, not the brass who had signed the top-secret documents, not even Hale until now. Hale's tone shifted, quieter, more probing. What happened to your unit? Her gaze went distant. Pain, guilt, and anger flickered across her face. They died, she said finally. Because someone leaked our location. Someone with top-level clearance. That betrayal, that's why I survived. I was left behind and the rest, her voice faltered. Who betrayed you? Hale pressed. Mara's throat constricted. She had sworn never to say the name. Not aloud. Not to anyone. Not even in the safety of memory. But the weight of the storm, the presence of the man who should not have known, forced her lips to part. Before she could answer, the door slammed open. An officer barged in, pale and breathless, eyes wide. Admiral, sir, we have a situation. Hale whipped his head around. What is it? The officer swallowed hard. The target, the man from the surveillance photo, the one with her tattoo, he just landed on U.S. soil. Mara's heart froze. Hale's hand clenched into a fist. Where? The officer hesitated, voice trembling. Here on this base, sir. Mara's chest tightened. The ghosts of missions past, the ones she had fought tooth and nail to forget, were here, alive and dangerous. She realized then with a clarity that made her stomach churn that her past was no longer behind her. It was here, walking the same halls she did, watching, waiting. Her pulse slammed against her ribs as Hale's gaze met hers. Get ready, he said quietly. We've got a long night ahead. Outside, the rain continued to lash the pier, thunder rolling like an omen. Inside, Mara's mind raced, every instinct screaming. Someone had activated her past, and they had brought it straight to her doorstep. The storm outside hammered the base, rain slicing across the pier in sheets. Thunder rolled in, low and menacing, echoing through the walls of the Strategic Operations briefing room. Mara Keene sat stiffly in the metal chair, arms still tingling from the handcuffs that had been removed only moments ago. Her eyes flicked to Admiral Rowan Hale, who stood a few feet away, rigid, his hands clasped behind his back. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of screens lining the walls, maps of foreign waters, satellite feeds, and operational intel, each flickering with encrypted secrets. The air between them felt charged, almost alive. Hale's gaze was a blade sharp enough to cut through years of lies, secrets, and half-truths. Mara had faced worse, hostile territory, ambushes in hostile jungles, drowning in adrenaline, but nothing compared to this scrutiny. You think I'm dangerous, Mara said, her voice trembling slightly, though she tried to mask it with defiance. I think you're hiding something, Hale replied evenly, something that matters right now. Mara swallowed hard. Her hands, which she had clasped together in her lap, began to shake. The tattoo on her ribs, the broken trident intertwined with a star, was not just a mark. It was a symbol of a life erased. A life that no one was supposed to remember, not even someone like Hale. I can't tell you, she whispered. Not here, not now, I swore an oath. Hale's eyes softened just slightly, but his intensity did not waver. Your oath is irrelevant. That program was shut down decades ago. Your file was declassified last night for urgent review. Mara's pulse skipped. Declassified. After all these years. She had thought the operations buried forever, hidden under layers of secrecy so thick that even senior officers wouldn't be able to trace them. "Why now?" she asked, voice barely audible. "Because someone has recreated it," Hale said simply. The words landed like a hammer to her chest. She felt a chill run down her spine. Recreated. Someone had brought Operation Emberline back from the dead. Someone was using her symbol, her training, her past, as a weapon. "No," she said, shaking her head. "Impossible. The facility, the program, it was destroyed." "Yet," Hale said, stepping closer, "last week a drone captured the same symbol on a target in the Red Sea." Mara's mind raced. Her tattoo was more than ink. It was a key, a warning, a signature. If someone else bore it now, it meant that the deadliest program the Navy ever ran had been resurrected, and whoever it was had her skills embedded in their design. "Admiral, if someone is using that program again," she whispered, voice faltering, "you don't know what you're dealing with." "Then explain it to me," Hale said. His tone was calm, but his eyes were like searchlights, probing for every detail, every micro-expression. Mara drew a deep breath, trying to steady the tremor in her hands. Operation Emberline wasn't military, not in the traditional sense. It wasn't sanctioned, not officially. We were trained off-book, off-grid. Missions were untraceable, sometimes even to naval intelligence. We weren't supposed to exist. "Ghost operatives," Hale murmured. "No," she said, correcting him. "Not ghosts, stars. We were stars because we weren't supposed to fall. We were proof that people could be rebuilt, remade, and sent into conflicts the world would never acknowledge. The trident," she paused, tracing the edge of the ink lightly with her finger, "signified jurisdiction under naval intelligence, but it also marked us as expendable." Hale's jaw tightened. "Conscripted," he said quietly, more statement than question. Mara didn't answer. She didn't need to. He understood now. He understood the lives erased, the missions that never officially existed, the colleagues who had died because someone had betrayed them. "What happened to the rest of your unit?" Hale asked, voice quiet but sharp. Her eyes went distant, seeing memories she had tried to bury. "They died," she said finally, "because someone leaked our location, someone with top-level clearance. That betrayal, that's why I survived." Her voice faltered. "And the rest, they didn't make it." Hale's expression darkened. "Who betrayed you?" Mara's throat tightened. She had sworn never to speak that name aloud, never to let anyone outside the program even think of it. Not to her friends, not to her family, not to the Navy, not even to the Admiral. But with the storm outside and the threat that had just landed on U.S. soil, she knew there was no choice. Before she could answer, the door burst open. An officer stumbled in, breathless, eyes wide, pale as a ghost. "Admiral, sir, urgent." Hale's eyes snapped to the man. "What is it?" "The target, the man from the surveillance photo. The one with her tattoo, he just landed on U.S. soil," the officer stammered. Mara's stomach turned to ice. Hale's hand clenched into a fist, knuckles white. "Where?" The officer hesitated. "Here on the base, sir." The words felt like a punch to Mara's chest. Every mission she had survived, every life she had tried to leave behind, was suddenly breathing down her neck. Someone had activated her past, and it had found its way to the present. Her pulse hammered. She could feel her training kicking in, every sense heightened, every muscle primed. The man who had survived in Berlin and carried her tattoo was here, and he was dangerous. "Get ready," Hale said quietly, his voice calm but loaded with intent. "We've got a long night ahead." Mara exhaled slowly, trying to regain control over her shaking hands. "Admiral, if he's here, he knows my history. He knows what I can do. And if he's activated the program, if he's here to use it." Her words trailed off, but the fear was clear in her eyes. Hale nodded. "I understand, and that's why I called you here. We don't have the luxury of secrecy anymore. He's on our soil, and we need you to stop him." The room felt smaller, oppressive. Mara could feel the weight of decades of secrets pressing down on her shoulders. The hum of the screens seemed louder, the storm outside more violent. She rose slightly in her chair, hands gripping the arms tightly. I survived in Berlin because I trusted no one, Admiral, because I knew betrayal was always a step away. And now, she swallowed hard, voice catching. Now the program is alive again, and it's targeting me. Hale's eyes were steady, unwavering. Then we stop it together. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, revealing Mara's tense expression, her taut muscles, her eyes that had seen too much and survived too little. Thunder followed, a deep, resonant boom that seemed to shake the building itself. Mara felt a chill creep down her spine. The past she had buried, the missions she had survived, the people she had lost, they were all converging here now. And the man who had landed on U.S. soil with her symbol, he was the first piece of a nightmare she couldn't yet see the end of. Her mind raced. Every instinct, every training drill, every memory of surviving impossible missions surged through her. She knew the danger wasn't just real, it was personal, and it had her name written all over it. Hale's voice cut through her thoughts. You'll need to move fast, you won't get a second chance. Mara's eyes narrowed. She had never backed down. She wasn't about to start now. She glanced at the screens, at the maps, at the feeds. Somewhere out there, her past had arrived, and it was hunting. And for the first time in years, Mara realized that she wasn't just fighting for her life, she was fighting for the truth. The rain had turned into a relentless downpour, streaking the base in sheets of gray, masking the distant hum of approaching vehicles and the sharp lights of security patrols. Mara Keene's boots squeaked on the wet concrete as she followed Hale down the corridor leading to the operations center, a room pulsing with the energy of alarms, monitors, and urgent messages. Tell me everything you remember about him, Hale said, not breaking stride. His tone was low, but every word carried weight. Mara's mind raced. The man who had landed on U.S. soil, the one bearing her symbol, was more than an operative. He was a ghost from Berlin, trained like she had been, built to vanish into impossible scenarios and rumored to be untraceable even to satellite feeds. He's fast, ruthless, and methodical, she said, glancing at Hale. If he's here, he isn't just targeting me, he's hunting the remnants of our program. Everyone who ever had access to Berlin is at risk, and her voice faltered. He knows my tactics, he knows me. Hale's expression darkened. Which makes him the most dangerous threat we've faced in years. He's not just a soldier, he's a weapon. Mara's hands tightened around the straps of her jacket. Memories from her training surged forward. Missions in remote deserts, underwater escapes, urban infiltrations in foreign countries, every scenario designed to test her limits. She had survived, but only because she trusted no one. And now she had no choice but to trust Hale. The operations center was a hive of activity. Screens flickered with satellite feeds, maps, and live tracking data. Officers moved like ants, their voices sharp, urgent. Mara's eyes were drawn to one screen, a thermal feed of the southern perimeter. A single figure moved swiftly, a shadow in the rain, impossible to track fully. The symbol on his shoulder glimmered faintly in the thermal imaging, the broken trident intertwined with a star. He's already inside the base, Mara whispered. Her stomach sank. He's using the storm as cover. Hale's eyes narrowed. Then we need to contain him before he disappears again. Lock down the perimeter. No one in or out without my authorization. As officers scrambled to execute orders, Mara felt the weight of her past pressing down on her. Berlin had trained her to survive alone, to anticipate threats no one else could see. And now, that training was the only thing standing between the base and the man she had once considered a comrade and a predator. Do you think he knows the full extent of Berlin? Hale asked. He knows enough, Mara said grimly. Enough to be lethal, and he's smart. He'll exploit any weakness, any hesitation. A flash of lightning lit the room, reflecting off the monitors and casting long shadows across Mara's face. Thunder rolled immediately after, as if the storm itself approved of the warning. Hale stepped closer. Then we play smart too, and we start by predicting his moves. Mara's eyes flicked back to the thermal feed. The shadow had moved closer to the central administration building. He wasn't random. He was calculated, moving with purpose, and every step he took echoed the training Mara had endured years ago. "He's targeting something specific," she said. "Not random. There's a file, a manifest from Emberline missions, a list. He's after it." Hale's expression hardened. "Then we stop him before he finds it. Every second counts." Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights pulsed across the operations center. Officers shouted, pointing at screens. Mara's eyes widened. A live feed from the southern gate showed a breach. The shadow had vanished from thermal sensors, only to reappear inside a maintenance corridor leading directly into the heart of the base. "He's inside," Mara whispered, heart pounding. "He bypassed the perimeter sensors." Hale barked orders and the operations center erupted into controlled chaos. Mara's mind went into overdrive. Every training drill, every scenario she had endured, flashed in her memory. She was ready. She had to be. "Admiral," she said, "he's heading for the secure wing. That's where they keep the legacy Emberline files, if he gets them." Her voice trailed off, but the implication was clear. Catastrophe, exposure, death. Hale's jaw tightened. "Then we intercept him now." Mara's boots hit the concrete with a rhythmic pounding as she moved down the corridors, Hale and a small tactical team behind her. Rainwater still soaked her jacket, but her focus was razor-sharp. Every shadow, every flicker of movement, every sound could be him. As they approached the secure wing, Mara's pulse quickened. The doors were reinforced, alarms blaring. Security protocols were in place, but she knew him. She knew he wouldn't be stopped by conventional means. Emberline operatives were trained to exploit every flaw, to think like shadows. She reached the keypad, entering the override code Hale had given her. The doors slid open with a hiss. The hallway beyond was dimly lit, shadows stretching like fingers across the walls. Mara's heart raced. She signaled to Hale, who nodded, and they moved in. A sudden noise, a soft metallic click, echoed from the far end of the hallway. Mara froze. She could hear it, subtle but deliberate. A trap. "He's here," she whispered. Hale drew his sidearm, moving silently. Mara's training kicked in. She ducked behind a support pillar, her eyes scanning the shadows. And then she saw him, the figure she had feared, a man cloaked in black tactical gear, moving with a predator's grace. The broken trident tattoo on his shoulder gleamed faintly in the dim light. Her breath caught. He was fast, methodical, and completely silent. He was Emberline perfected. "Stop him," Hale shouted, but Mara knew it wasn't that simple. He was already anticipating them, every move calculated, every escape route pre-planned. The man froze, then turned his head slightly. His eyes, cold, sharp, unreadable, locked onto hers. Recognition flickered. He knew her, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. Mara's stomach dropped. This was no longer a game of interception. This was personal. The figure bolted down the corridor. Mara sprinted after him, Hale and the tactical team close behind. The chase twisted through narrow hallways, stairwells, and maintenance tunnels. Rainwater from leaks above pooled on the floors, making every step treacherous. And then, without warning, he vanished. One moment he was there, the next gone. Mara skidded to a stop, chest heaving. The hallway was empty. Hale's voice came through her earpiece. "He's using the maintenance tunnels. We know where he went. Move." Mara's mind raced. The man was not just fast, he was a ghost. He had survived Emberline. He had survived death. And now he was back, alive, hunting, and more dangerous than ever. She felt a cold, creeping dread. This was just the beginning. And then she heard it. A faint whisper carried through the tunnels, almost indistinguishable from the hum of the storm. "Mara." Her blood ran cold. He knew her name. The maintenance tunnels beneath the base were a maze of concrete and steel, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights. The smell of damp metal and oil permeated the air, mixing with the distant rumble of thunder and the endless patter of rain on the roof above. Mara Keen's boots echoed loudly as she sprinted, her sidearm drawn, pulse hammering in her chest. Every instinct honed by years in Emberline screamed at her. He was here, and he was always one step ahead. Admiral Hale's tactical team moved behind her, silent and precise, but Mara knew they weren't trained for this level of unpredictability. Only she could anticipate the movements of someone who had been forged in the same program as she had. A faint metallic click sounded ahead, almost like a warning. Mara froze, heart thudding, every muscle in her body tensed. She knew that sound. It was a trap, something left intentionally to mislead or delay pursuers. She crouched behind a support pillar, listening. Then a shadow flickered across the far wall. The man. Her eyes locked onto him. He moved with preternatural precision, silent, fluid, calculating. The broken trident tattoo on his shoulder gleamed faintly in the dim light, a mocking reminder of their shared past. "He's baiting us," Mara whispered into her comm. "Don't engage unless I give the signal." Hale's voice came back, low and measured. "Understood, just keep him contained." Mara inched forward, scanning the tunnels, every sense on high alert. She had survived ambushes in hostile territories, extraction missions in deserts, and underwater infiltrations, but this was different. The threat was intimate, personal. He knew her. He understood her training. He anticipated her moves before she even made them. She ducked another corner and caught a glimpse of him disappearing down a narrow side tunnel. Her pulse spiked. She signaled Hale to follow, silently counting each step. Every second mattered. If he reached the secure wing, the legacy Emberline files would be at risk. And if those files were compromised, the consequences could unravel the entire covert program. Suddenly, the shadow reappeared in the distance, moving in a way that seemed impossible, almost ghost-like. Mara froze, straining her ears. A soft metallic sound, another trap, echoed through the tunnel. "Pressure plate," she muttered, recognizing the signature of his setup. "He's testing our reflexes." Hale's tactical team halted, uncertainty flashing across their faces. Mara didn't hesitate. She leapt to the side, avoiding the plate, then signaled them to follow. The chase continued, twisting through narrow corridors and stairwells. Mara's mind raced as she calculated possible escape routes he might use. Every movement, every shadow, every flicker of light was a clue. She could feel the history of Emberline coursing through her veins. The training, the drills, the missions she had survived because she never trusted anyone, never relied on anyone. "He's drawing us deeper," she whispered into her comm. "He wants us inside the tunnels where he has the advantage. Watch for traps." Another flash of lightning illuminated the corridor. For a split second, she saw his face. Recognition, cold and calculating, and a hint of a smirk. He had survived everything just like she had, and now he was here to challenge her in a way no mission ever had. They rounded a corner and found the hallway blocked by a collapsed section of wall. Debris littered the floor. Mara's heart sank. He was always one step ahead. But then she noticed the faint scratch marks along the edges of the concrete, an exit, small and almost invisible, just big enough for someone trained in Emberline to squeeze through. "He went this way," Mara said, motioning to Hale. They moved quickly, careful not to trigger any traps, until they reached a secondary corridor. The faint echo of footsteps ahead confirmed they were on the right trail. Then, without warning, a figure appeared at the end of the corridor. The man stopped, facing her directly. His eyes gleamed with recognition, his posture relaxed but ready. "Mara," he said softly, almost a whisper carried by the echoing tunnel. Her blood ran cold. He knew her name. He knew everything about her. "You shouldn't have come," he continued, voice calm but deadly. "This is my operation now." Mara raised her sidearm, hand steady despite the adrenaline surging through her body. "I'm stopping you," she said, voice low, controlled. "And I'll do whatever it takes." He smirked. "You survived in Berlin, but this time you're not in control." The words cut deep. He knew her history, her tactics, even her limits. He was exploiting them. Every instinct screamed at her to move, to act, but she knew he had anticipated that. Then the lights flickered, and a sudden explosion of sparks from the tunnel ceiling sent debris raining down. Hale shouted orders, and the tactical team scrambled for cover. Mara ducked instinctively, her sidearm trained on the shadowy figure. When the sparks cleared, he had vanished. She gritted her teeth. He was playing them, drawing them into a deadly game. Mara's mind raced, recalling every Emberline extraction drill, every escape route she had memorized during training. He was fast, smarter than anyone she had ever faced, and now he was inside the base, a place no operative should have been able to infiltrate. A sudden noise echoed from the far side of the tunnel, a soft metallic sliding, almost like a door opening. Mara froze, listening. "He's setting something up," she whispered to Hale. "It's not just about files, he wants a trap." Hale nodded grimly. "Then we end this before it escalates. You lead, we follow." Mara took a deep breath, pushing fear and adrenaline into focus. She moved forward, careful with every step, muscles coiled like springs. Her eyes scanned the shadows for any sign of movement. Then she saw it, a faint glimmer of light reflecting off metal at the end of the tunnel. Her pulse quickened. He was preparing something, but what? Before she could react, the ground beneath her shook. The tunnel walls vibrated with a sudden, violent force. Debris fell from above. Mara stumbled, barely maintaining her balance. Hale shouted, warning the team to brace themselves. And then she saw him, the shadow from Emberline appearing on a ledge above, silhouetted against the faint emergency lighting. He leapt down into the corridor with lethal grace, landing silently. "Mara," he said again, his voice cold, almost intimate, "you shouldn't have come back." Her heart pounded. Every memory of Emberline training surged to the forefront. Escape, evasion, counterattack. She knew she had to act, but he was anticipating her every move. And in that instant, Mara realized the terrifying truth. This wasn't just a mission. It was a reckoning. The tunnels were a death trap of shadows, wet metal, and uncertainty. Every step Mara Keene took echoed through the narrow corridors, bouncing off walls slick with rainwater. Her sidearm was steady in her hand, but her pulse throbbed like a drum, each beat a reminder that the man from her past was alive and hunting. He had waited for her, anticipated her moves, and now, silhouetted on the ledge above, he exuded a lethal calm that Mara knew all too well. The Emberline training they had both endured had honed him into the perfect predator, fast, precise, unflinching. And he knew her tactics as intimately as she did. "Mara," he said again, his voice low, almost intimate, "you shouldn't have come back. You know what happens when the stars are activated." Her jaw tightened. She had faced impossible missions, enemy fire, drowning in darkness, and yet nothing had prepared her for this. This wasn't just combat, it was personal. "I'm stopping you," she said, voice controlled but steely. "No one else will be endangered because of you." He smirked, a flicker of amusement crossing his shadowed face. "You always think you can stop me. You always underestimate the chaos we create." Hale's tactical team followed closely, weapons drawn, eyes sharp. He whispered into Mara's earpiece, "Be careful. He knows every move we've trained against. Trust your instincts." Mara nodded subtly, her eyes never leaving him. The storm of her past, the people she had lost, the missions erased from all official records surged through her mind. Every lesson, every escape, every confrontation, all of it had led to this moment. The man jumped down from the ledge, landing with barely a sound. He moved with fluidity, predictability only to someone untrained, but Mara recognized the pattern. She had studied it in countless drills, anticipated it in simulations, but this was real. He lunged, rapid and precise. Mara pivoted, sidestepping just in time, her training guiding her movements. Her sidearm barked twice, forcing him to take cover behind a support pillar. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted off metal surfaces. "This way," Mara shouted to Hale, signaling a narrow service hatch leading to a side maintenance corridor. They ducked through, and the man followed, moving with uncanny agility. The corridor twisted like a snake, forcing them into a tense, narrow passage where the lights flickered ominously. Mara's mind raced, calculating distances, predicting his next move. She could almost see through his actions. He mirrored Emberline training patterns she had endured, adjusted for real-life variables. Then she saw it. A tripwire stretched across the corridor, thin and almost invisible in the dim emergency lighting. Her eyes widened. He wasn't just here to confront her. He was setting traps designed to exploit every advantage he had. "Trap!" she shouted, diving to the side as a small explosion rocked the corridor, sending sparks and shards of concrete flying. Hale and the team scattered, taking cover behind support beams. Mara rolled forward, regaining her footing just in time. The man's shadow flickered at the edge of the tunnel, almost teasing her. "You can't stop what's coming," he said, voice echoing off the walls. "You never could." Mara gritted her teeth. "I survived Emberline, I survived betrayal, I'll survive you." He lunged again, faster than before. Mara fired 2 precise shots, grazing his shoulder. He staggered slightly but didn't fall. She realized he had anticipated that too. His armor was reinforced, designed to survive high-impact scenarios. Hale's voice came through her earpiece. "He's drawing you deeper. Don't let him lead you into a dead end." Her mind raced. He was pulling them into the heart of the tunnels, where the narrow corridors gave him every tactical advantage. She needed to turn the tables. Spotting a small maintenance hatch in the side wall, she signaled Hale. "Through here." They ducked inside, emerging into a ventilation shaft that ran parallel to the main tunnel. The man followed, but Mara had predicted his route. The shaft was narrow, forcing him to slow down, giving her the first real advantage since the chase began. The confined space was claustrophobic, the hum of the base machinery vibrating through the metal walls. Mara's pulse was steady now, adrenaline sharpened into clarity. She moved with precision, crouching low, ready for the moment he emerged. Suddenly, the man appeared at the end of the shaft, blocking her path. His eyes glinted with cold recognition. "You can't escape me here," he said, voice echoing. "Every move you make, I've anticipated." Mara didn't flinch. She had trained for this. She had faced impossible odds, and she had survived. "Then you underestimated me," she replied, voice calm but edged with steel. He lunged again, and this time Mara was ready. She sidestepped, using his momentum to throw him off balance. He collided with the wall, but instead of incapacitating him, it fueled his anger. Emberline training kicked in. He recovered instantly, rolling back to his feet. "You're good," he said, smirking despite the pain, "but not good enough." Mara's mind raced. She had to end this not just for herself, but for everyone who could be endangered if he reached the legacy files. She had one chance, one opening, and she knew it. She darted forward, using her knowledge of the shaft to her advantage. He followed, and as they moved, she manipulated the environment, loose grates, exposed wiring, and narrow turns. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and the confined space became a battlefield of shadows and reflexes. Then, without warning, the shaft opened into a large maintenance chamber. Dim light revealed crates, machinery, and equipment scattered across the floor. Mara paused for a split second. The man was there, waiting, a predator in his element. He had led her here deliberately. "You've done well to survive this far," he said, voice low, "but it ends now." Mara's eyes scanned the room. The crates offered cover, the shadows offered concealment, but she needed more. She could feel her training pushing her forward, every memory of Emberline guiding her instincts. And then she saw it, an exposed conduit running along the wall. If she could trigger it just right, she could create a barrier, slow him down, maybe even trap him temporarily. She moved quickly, calculating the timing perfectly. With a swift kick, she struck the conduit. Sparks shot across the room, metal groaned, and debris tumbled, creating a temporary barrier between her and him. He snarled, momentarily halted, but his eyes never left hers. "Clever," he said, "but clever isn't enough." Mara's heart pounded. The storm outside, the rain, the shadows, the past, it all came crashing together. She realized with a chilling clarity that this confrontation was only beginning. Hale's voice cut through the comms. "Mara status." "Engaged," she whispered. "And he knows me more than I thought. We're running out of time." A sudden rumble shook the room. Sparks flew from the conduit. The man's eyes flickered with recognition and amusement. He knew she had set the trap. He was ready. Mara's pulse raced. She had survived everything. Every impossible mission, every betrayal, every near-death experience. But this was different. This was personal, and the fight was far from over. As she steadied herself, preparing for the next move, she realized one undeniable truth. The shadows in the tunnels weren't just hiding him. They were hiding secrets that could destroy them both. And then from the darkness he spoke again, a whisper that froze her blood. "Mara, you can't save them. Not anymore." The maintenance chamber smelled of wet metal and ozone, sparks flying from the damaged conduit like fleeting stars in the dim light. Mara Keene crouched behind a steel crate, sidearm trained on the figure across the room. The man, her former comrade, the one who had survived in Berlin with her, stood poised, almost relaxed, a predator enjoying the hunt. "You can't save anyone," he said, his voice low and taunting, echoing off the walls. "Not your friends, not your handlers. They're already dead to you." Mara's pulse raced, each beat a drum of survival and fury. "You're wrong," she spat, stepping from behind her cover. "I save who I can, and I stop threats like you." His eyes glinted with a mix of amusement and malice. "Do you even know why Berlin ended, Mara? Do you remember who betrayed us?" Her breath caught. Betrayal. That word had haunted her for years, gnawed at her nights, and made her question every loyalty. She had always known someone at the top had left her unit exposed, but never the face. "I don't know who," she began. "You do," he interrupted sharply. "You've always known." Mara's stomach twisted. "No, that's impossible." He stepped closer, deliberate, slow, every movement precise. "Do you really think you survived all those missions by accident? Do you think I survived because I was lucky? Someone high up wanted you both to live, and someone else wanted you to die. You just never realized who." Hale's voice crackled over the comms. "Mara status." "Engaged," she whispered, eyes fixed on the shadow in front of her. Every muscle tensed, ready for sudden violence. He's playing mind games." "No," he said, almost smiling. "I'm telling you the truth. Your team, your unit, destroyed because of orders from inside. Someone you trusted. Someone who signed the deployment orders." Mara staggered backward slightly. The past she had buried, the faces of those who had died in ambushes, in deserts, under fire, suddenly all converged. The anger that had simmered for years rose like molten fire. "You're lying," she hissed. "No one betrayed us, no one had the power." "Do you really think it was luck that left you behind?" His gaze was piercing, relentless. "Do you think it was coincidence that the rest of your unit perished while you survived?" Mara's hands shook. Her mind raced through every mission, every detail, every decision. And then a flicker of memory. Orders she had questioned, communications she had found suspicious, files she had glimpsed but dismissed as classified protocol. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Hale's presence was a grounding force behind her. "Mara, focus," he urged quietly. "He's trying to destabilize you. Keep him in sight, control your moves." But she couldn't shake the weight of the revelation forming in her mind. Someone at the top, someone she had trusted, had orchestrated the destruction of her unit. The betrayal wasn't just strategic, it was personal. The man's smirk widened. Yes, and now it's all coming back. Berlin isn't over, not for either of us. I've been waiting, planning, and now the program is alive again. You'll see what I've become. Mara's sidearm tracked him, each movement careful, every instinct sharp. She had survived impossible missions, but this was a battle of wits, memory, and survival, not just bullets. Then he lunged suddenly, faster than before. Mara pivoted, narrowly avoiding his strike. Sparks flew as he struck metal crates instead. She rolled, firing a shot that grazed his shoulder, but he shrugged it off with unnatural resilience. "Stop running," he said, voice cold. "Berlin taught you to anticipate me, but you can't anticipate yourself. You're predictable." Her jaw clenched. He was right in one way. She had patterns, drilled instincts, reflexes honed over years. But she had something he didn't anticipate, the human element. Anger, grief, determination. She would use that. Mara feinted left, then darted right, dodging another lunge. The chase led them through a tangle of crates, exposed pipes, and shadowed corners. Each movement was dangerous. One misstep could be fatal. The room was a labyrinth designed to test their survival instincts, and he had turned it into his advantage. Suddenly the man stopped, his gaze scanning the room. "You've changed," he said almost quietly. "I can see it. You're not the same Mara from Berlin. You're stronger and more dangerous." Mara's chest heaved. "You're insane if you think you can take me down with mind games." He smiled almost approvingly. "No, I'm insane because I've seen the truth. And the truth is you can't stop what's coming. The program, it's bigger than us now, and it will consume anyone in its path." Mara's thoughts raced. The legacy files, the reconstructed Berlin operatives, the man's cryptic warnings, all of it pointed to something catastrophic. He wasn't just here for revenge. He was here to trigger the next phase. Then she saw movement near the far wall. Another figure emerged, masked in tactical gear but familiar. Hale's team had split to intercept, but Mara realized with horror. One of them hesitated, and the intruder moved with uncanny coordination, almost as if he anticipated their every action. Her stomach dropped. He had allies. Berlin operatives, dormant and reactivated, had arrived. The base was no longer just a battlefield, it was a trap. Hale's voice came through the comms again, urgent. "Mara, do you see them?" "I do," she whispered, eyes narrowing. "And it's worse than I thought. He's not alone." The man across the room took a step forward, slowly, deliberately. "See, you can't escape. This is bigger than us, and the truth will destroy you if you try to stop it." Mara's sidearm tightened in her grip. She could feel the past and present colliding, Berlin, betrayal, survival, all culminating in this moment. She realized the stakes were higher than ever. If she failed, not just her life but everyone connected to Berlin would be in danger. Then from the shadows, the man's voice pierced the room again, taunting yet eerily calm. "You always wondered why you survived. Now you'll understand, and nothing will save them." Mara's chest tightened. She had always survived. But this was more than survival. This was a reckoning. And the next move would determine not just who lived, but who would control the deadly legacy of Berlin. The sparks from the damaged conduit reflected off his eyes, making them gleam with an almost supernatural intensity. He lunged again, and Mara prepared herself for the strike that would change everything. The maintenance chamber had become a war zone of shadows, sparks, and whispered threats. Mara Keen's muscles screamed from the chase, her mind a razor-edged focus of instinct and calculation. Every corner, every crate, every shadow could conceal the enemy, or a trap, but there was no turning back now. Not when Berlin itself was alive again, and not when betrayal had left its fingerprints all over her past. The man who had survived Berlin with her, the ghost of missions erased from history, stood opposite her, calm, poised, and lethal. His allies, other reactivated operatives, were emerging from the shadows, moving like phantoms, each step choreographed for maximum efficiency. The weight of the legacy they carried and the danger they posed pressed down on her like a physical force. Mara's sidearm felt light in her grip, her training guiding every move. But the most dangerous weapon she possessed was not her reflexes, it was her mind. Every tactic he used, every psychological ploy, every anticipated move he thought he had predicted, Mara turned against him. "You can't stop this," he said, stepping forward. "The program is bigger than both of us. You've always been predictable." "Not anymore," Mara replied, voice steady, burning with determination. She darted forward, sidestepping his lunge, using her agility to exploit his momentum. Sparks flew from the damaged conduit, and the metal of the crates screeched under their collision. Hale's team engaged the other operatives, the confined space turning the fight into a tense ballet of gunfire, close-quarters combat, and the clashing of trained instincts. Mara's eyes never left him. She knew every trick, every move, every signature of his training because it mirrored her own. The man smirked, then lunged again. This time Mara anticipated it fully. With a sharp pivot, she sidestepped, forcing him into a stack of crates. They toppled, metal clanging loudly. For the first time, she saw a flicker of vulnerability, a crack in his otherwise impenetrable demeanor. "You think this ends with a fight?" he growled, rising from the debris. "You have no idea what's coming." "I have an idea," she said, her voice calm but fierce, "and I'm going to stop it." Her mind raced through the options, every contingency, every tactical advantage she could exploit. Then she remembered the secondary conduit she had seen earlier, the exposed pipe running along the ceiling. If she could trigger it just right, it could create a barrier, buying them crucial seconds. She made her move. With a calculated kick, she struck the conduit. Sparks erupted, creating a blinding flash and sending metal debris tumbling. The sudden chaos forced the enemy operatives to halt, giving Hale's team the advantage to subdue them one by one. The man stood, momentarily blinded, fury flashing across his face. "Clever," he said, voice low and dangerous, "but clever won't save you." Mara didn't respond. Her focus was unwavering. She advanced, using her knowledge of the chamber to anticipate his path. Each movement was precise, calculated, and deadly. Suddenly, he lunged at her, faster than any human should move. She pivoted, sidestepped, and struck a decisive blow with the butt of her sidearm. He staggered but didn't fall. Her heart pounded. He was resilient, almost unnervingly so. "You survived for a reason," she whispered, realizing the truth herself for the first time. "Because someone wanted you alive, someone like me, to stop what comes next." He froze. For the first time in decades, she saw doubt flicker in his eyes. Not fear, but recognition. He knew she was more than her training. She was a force shaped by survival, betrayal, and now righteous determination. Mara pressed the advantage, moving with fluid precision. Every strike, every step, every maneuver was designed to control him without unnecessary risk to the base or the legacy files. She forced him backward, toward the edge of the chamber. Hale's voice came over the comms, calm but authoritative. "Contain him. You've got him." Mara's eyes locked onto the man. "It ends now," she said. He lunged one final time and she sidestepped, using his momentum to throw him off balance. He stumbled against the crates, and Mara executed a swift disarm, leveraging her training to pin him down. Her sidearm pressed against his chest, her eyes never leaving his. "You betrayed us," she said, voice tight with anger and grief. "You killed our unit. You thought you could play God, but it's over." He laughed low and bitter. "You think it's over. Imberline isn't a program, it's a legacy, and legacies don't die." Mara's grip tightened. "Legacies can be controlled, and yours ends here." With a swift motion, she secured him with handcuffs, her fingers steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Hale's team moved quickly, containing the remaining operatives and securing the chamber. The storm outside raged, rain slashing against the walls, thunder rolling like the echo of battles long past. Mara stood over the man, breathing heavily, every muscle taut, every nerve alight with the culmination of decades of survival and training. Hale approached, eyes assessing the situation. "Good work," he said, voice low, "but you know this isn't just the end. Someone reactivated Emberline for a reason. We need answers." Mara nodded. "And we'll get them," she said, determination etched into every line of her face. "But for now, this ends here. He won't hurt anyone else." The man looked up at her, his expression unreadable. Then he smirked, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "You always were the better star, Mara, but remember, this isn't the end. Emberline never truly dies." Mara's grip didn't falter. "I'll make sure it does," she said, voice final, resolute. Hale stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did more than stop him. You stopped the program from continuing in the wrong hands, and you did it with the precision only someone like you could manage." Mara exhaled slowly, letting the tension drain from her shoulders. The storm outside had started to ease, the rain turning from sheets to a steady drizzle. For the first time in years, she felt a fragile sense of closure. Not all of it, but enough. The man was taken into custody, operatives restrained, and the base slowly returned to controlled order. Yet Mara knew the truth of his final words. Emberline was a legacy, yes, but it was one she had the power to end. And she would. As she walked out of the maintenance chamber, Hale beside her, the base slowly returning to normal, Mara allowed herself a brief glance at the sky beyond the storm. The clouds were breaking. Light filtered through, reflecting off the rain-soaked surfaces, painting the world in shades of gray and silver. The past had caught up with her. The betrayal, the lost comrades, the hidden operations, all laid bare. And yet she had survived. She had faced the ghost of her past, controlled the chaos, and ensured that Emberline would no longer threaten anyone's life. She finally allowed herself to exhale fully, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and quiet triumph. The handcuffs had been a reminder of how far she had come, from being bound by secrecy and betrayal to standing free, in control, and ready to face whatever else the world had in store. And as she looked at Hale, who gave her a nod of acknowledgement, Mara knew one thing with certainty. Some legacies are meant to die, some stars burn out, but she, Mara Keene, would survive. And this time on her own terms. End of Part 8, The Reckoning.